this is just south of Grand Rivers, Kentucky.
Grand River's not Rapids yet.
They pulled in there at about 3 o'clock, 3:30 or so in the afternoon. Mind you, this was 1982. It was a top of the line. It would be the equivalent of a Prevost or something nowadays. But it was a top of the line motor coach. These were very wealthy people. They backed into the spot. It just so happens there was nobody in that section of the RV campground then at that time of the year. And it was very, very early spring before it was still a little bit cold. Anyway, back then they still had to hand crank the leveling jacks. It was a man, a wife, a boy about 10 years old.
Yeah, he was older than the little girl.
10 or 11-year-old, 11-year-old, but 10 or 11-year-old boy and a 9-year-old little girl. The wife and the daughter were inside getting ready to set up to cook supper and everything. The father and the son were out and they were leveling the thing. The man was down on his down on his knees with the jack, leveling the front end of the RV. This thing here came up the RV slot, sort of backed in. You backed into the north side of the road, off the north side of the road. There's a big draw that goes down to the river, down to the Cumberland River.
Was Cumberland?
Yeah, that's Cumberland side. Yeah,
Gotcha.
Cumberland River side, Lake Barkley side.
Yep.
Just on the east side of that RV spot. And this thing came up out of that draw, and by this time it was about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And mind you, this is in probably, I think it was very early March, late February. So it's getting dark at 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
Early, before the time change.
Right. This thing comes up, it comes around the left front corner of the RV. The man's down on his hands and knees. He grabs the guy and snatches his head right off. And that's the way even type 1s and type 2s kill people.
Remember the Bachman story?
What?
Roosevelt story?
Yeah, the Bachman story from Teddy Roosevelt. He even described it the same way then. We have found old newspaper accounts going back all the way into 1830s of when people were attacked by them and they were killed the exact same way. The booger comes up, grabs him by the shoulder and just like that, the head goes flying. The next thing he did, he ripped out both of the guy's arms and threw them. The little boy takes off running, trying to get into the RV. He makes it to the door. He's got a hold of the door. The thing grabs him, tears him to shreds too. The mother is screaming and yelling. The thing tears through the outside door. The solid door was open, latched back. It tears through the screen door, gets in there, and that woman, adrenaline does amazing things. That woman put up a hell of a fight. Tore the inside of that damn RV all to pieces. She fought that thing so much she torn all of the flesh off the ends of her fingers. She had bare bones hanging out of her hands where she had been tearing at this thing. She obviously inflicted wounds on it. The thing was in that cramped RV, so I guess she had a little bit of an advantage. She had no advantage, but it was handicapped someone. It did overpower her and tear her to shreds. Now, the law enforcement reports and talking to the people that I've been able to talk to would not tell what it did to the woman, although it said that it absolutely mutilated her. And literally tore her to shreds. All right. The little girl had run to the back of the RV and locked herself in the back bedroom. It tore the door open, got her, took her outside, and partially ate her. Drug her off down into the woods and either carried her body up or threw her body up into a tree 30 feet in the air. She was hanging in the crotch of a tree 30 feet off the ground. That tree still stands. I know where it is. I took Tom down there and showed him. And I was taken down there and shown where that was. And, what was the name of them? Don't know. I don't recall it off. I don't recall it off my head.
Tell about your ranger, buddy.
I have a friend who was a ranger there. Who he and I grew up together. I've known him since old enough to know anybody. Yeah, he was a ranger in the land between the lakes, and he and I grew up in the same church. His parents and my parents are friends. His grandparents and my grandparents were friends, and we went to the same schools together. He graduated a year ahead of me, and he worked on the Natchez Trace for a law enforcement ranger for a number of years, and then got transferred to land between the lakes.
No,
Teddy Roosevelt
wrote
had
an account.
a
The
man.
Wilderness Hunter.
He had a man that worked for him that ran into something like this and told him the story about it. And Teddy Roosevelt recorded it in detail in one of his books.
The book was called The Wilderness Hunter.
Yeah.
And it was also in the lake.
No, it happened up in Wyoming.
Yeah.
No. Either
It was either Montana or Wyoming.
Montana or North Dakota. Montana or extreme western North Dakota. I think
They just had an
Montana or Idaho.
They just had an expedition that's tried
Right.
to find that
Yeah.
site just recently,
Right.
this past summer.
You can.
I don't know if
It's
they've
spelled.
actually found
It's spelled B as in boy. Bauman. You can look it up. It's very easy to find.
All you have to do is Google search it.
Yeah.
M-A-N.
M-A-N. B-A-U-M-A-N. The Bauman or Bowman story.
Put it in your cell phone right now. When you get
Yeah.
home, you can Google it.
Yeah, Teddy Roosevelt Bauman story.
It's in one of his
Yeah.
books. Yep.
Do what?
About your ranger.
Yeah, okay. Now, some people came riding by there at about a little bit after 4 o'clock and saw the body of the man laying there in front of the RV. The front was pointed out towards the main loop in the RV park. They see his torso laying there. They hauled ass out of there and didn't stop until they got into the town of Grand Rivers, and reported it to the Grand Rivers Police Department. Called the police. This is
Probably sheriff.
This is before 911. The first people there on the scene were the Grand Rivers Police, followed closely by the county, followed closely by the land between the lakes, law enforcement rangers, rangers and stuff. They started, looking around. They found the boy was there, the wife was there, the husband's body was there. They found clothes in the closet for the little girl, but they didn't find the little girl, so they were wondering where she was. They went outside and started looking, and they found a blood trail going down through the woods and started following it. They got to a point where they lost it. I'm not going to tell the officer's name, but I know his name. There were two officers standing there. One of them had his Smokey Bear hat on, ranger hat on. And he's standing there, and they're shining their light down in this draw, looking around to see if they can see anything. Something starts dripping on his brim of his hat. And he looked up like this, and it got in his eyes. He said, "Well, dang," and he turned around, and his buddy, another law enforcement officer, standing behind him, and shined his light over. He said, "Damn, you got blood all over your face. You hit a briar or a stick or something?" And he said, "No, it's dripping on me." And they looked up, and there was the girl's body, way up there. And that's how they found the little. And that ruined that man's career. It tore him up so bad he never got over it. He still lives in the area. We know his name. He doesn't want to talk about it anymore. And he's having to deal with it.
Plus, he's been threatened.
Yeah, but
government knows. Uncle Sam knows these things.
Now, here's something you need to remember. A critical thing about this story is this happened right at dusky dark. If any of you are woodsmen or hunters or whatever, you know that late at night or in the afternoon, the thermals change. During the day, the sun heats the air goes up ridges and mountainsides and goes up. That's how gliders work. At dusk, the air starts cooling off, the air starts coming down and going down the slopes and hillsides and stuff, down into bottoms, down into creek beds and stuff like that. This happened right after the thermals had turned. This guy was slathered with canoe cologne. You remember back in the early 80s and 82, everybody wore your shirts buttoned down, big hairy chest and all these gold chains and everything, and lots of cologne, and The woman was a high maintenance woman, had all this stuff, and had herself bathed down in Chanel or Estee Lauder or something like that. But he had on lots of cologne. And they do not like strong smells like that. That's probably why it came up there. It was probably just walking along the riverfront, the waterfront down below where that hollow goes out into the water, and probably smelled that very strong cologne and was aggravated by it. Came up through the draw and found the guy there. He said, "Oh, there's the source of that god-awful smell. I'll take care of that right now." There's that. He gets the kid, goes in there, and he finds the wife. The wife is covered up with stuff like that too. That incenses him even more. So he tears her up. And he
Plus,
says, well,
he was already in the bloodlust.
Exactly. He says, "So while I'm here, I'll get supper."
Full predator mode.
Right. So now, I'll tell the other story later.
Oh, they probably got everything you don't want to prove,
yeah.
but they washed it away, man.
What happened after that? This is very close to Fort Campbell, Kentucky, which is the headquarters of the 101st Airborne Division. They shut down the north end of Land Between the Lakes.
Sure did.
They
shut it all down.
They put boats all out in the river on both the Kentucky Lake side and the Barkley Lake side, and in the canal connecting them. They put a wall-to-wall, shoulder-to-shoulder line of people. They went back a few miles south and put a shoulder-to-shoulder wall of heavily armed men, literally from shoreline to shoreline across the Land Between the Lakes. The Land Between the Lakes is a huge, narrow peninsula.
It's separated by the Tennessee River on the west side and the Cumberland River on the east side.
Right. And there's a canal connects the two at the north end. So like I said, it's about a 40-mile long peninsula. They started moving north, and according to my friend, he said that the orders were, if it's brown, it's down. If it's brown and it moves, kill it. They killed everything. They actually found that one's lair in the hollow south, a big, deep hollow with a bunch of rocky crags and stuff in it, to the south of the campground. The reports were, and I've been able to corroborate this from two independent sources, when they finally killed the thing, it was so big that they couldn't carry it up out of the hollow. They brought a deuce and a half up. Y'all know what a deuce and a half is? 2.5 ton truck. Big military truck that's got dual wheels on the back. Most of them have a big winch on them. They ran the winch cable off down into the draw and cabled onto the thing and used the winch on the deuce and a half to pull the thing back up out of the draw. And supposedly it was close to 12 feet tall. And I don't know how much it weighed, but it weighed a bunch. Now, nothing else happened. Things were quiet there until 2002.
Listen to this one.
20 years. Now, we have a guy in our group that lives right across the river he lives right across Barkley Lake from this.
On the Cumberland River
and
side.
we've been researching with him since 99, 2000.
About 2000.
Yeah, about 2000. All right. And my friend is still working down there. I'm working with the Boy Scouts then. And we're getting ready to go to Philmont Scout Ranch, and we wanted to do some hiking and stuff. So I called my buddy up. Now, at this time, I didn't even know about the first one. My buddy, my law enforcement ranger friend, had not told me about the first thing that happened in '82. So I called him up and I said, "Hey, I want to bring our troop up here, and we want to camp out and do some hiking. We want to hike up the Trace Trail, which goes right up through the middle of the thing." And he said, "Okay." He said, "I suggest that y'all start out and you camp down the Piney Campground, which is further south." He said, "Do not go north of the elk and buffalo enclosure, which is
Kentucky side.
Which is just barely into the Kentucky side, the north side." He said, "Don't go anywhere north of there." And I said, "Well, okay. Why?" He said, "When are you coming?" And I told him what date. And he said, "Oh, okay, I'll be there." So he did. And we were setting up camp there on Friday afternoon, and he came by and found us, and he said, "Well, hey," he said, "Are you gonna?" He said, "Do you have to be with?" He's, you want to visit or talk or whatever? Sure, because I hadn't seen him in a while. So he came back the next morning, and he said, "Well, throw your stuff in there," and he said, he said, "We'll ride around some, and I'll get you. We'll circle around, and I'll get you back with your group." All right, because there was two more adults that were there. That was a requirement that you had to have two adults with the Boy Scouts anytime you were out on a camp out of the trail. All right, that'll work. So I got in the car with my buddy. Off we go, riding. He says, "Well, I want to tell you something about what happened up here." And he said, "If you're planning on coming up here very much," because I told him we were planning on doing some more practice hikes, and he said, "You need to know about what's going on up here." And he knew that I researched Bigfoot, but he and I had never talked about it. And he said, we had a guy get killed up here by a wolf man last year. I said, "Oh, come on." And he says, "No."
He said Wolfman.
He said Wolfman.
Yeah, Tim was Bigfoot.
Yeah. And well, I knew that these type 4s existed, but I didn't want to just admit it to him. And I said, what happened? And he said, "Well, I'm going to take you there and show you what happened." So he took me up to the place, and it was a bow hunter. The guy had been in there bow hunting for deer, and he pitched a tent. Now, in Land Between the Lakes, you can camp anywhere you want. You can camp. You can pull off the side of the road and camp. You can drive out on the edge of a field and camp. And he drove off one of the back roads and drove out into a field and parked and pitched his tent. And he was back there bow hunting. He had told his wife he was going to be back Sunday night. Well, he didn't come back Sunday night, and she thought he'd maybe shot a deer and had to track it, which commonly happens bow hunting. And they figured he would show up late in the night or by Monday morning. Monday morning came. He wasn't there. So about 7 o'clock, she called the ranger station. Said her husband hadn't come in. And my buddy was in there, and they were having their shift start briefing. One of the other guys took the call, and you have to fill out a deal that says what color your vehicle is, what your tag number is. And he came in there and he said, "Hey, got a guy that didn't come back, is missing in here somewhere. He's got driving a white Nissan pickup truck, tag number, yada, yada, yada." And y'all said, "Oh, yeah, I know where he is. He's camped right up there off of the old trail road, the old Trail Ridge Road." "Well, okay, let's go up there." So they go riding up there, and they ride up there, pull off into where he is, and there's his tent, and there's his truck. The tent is torn literally to shreds. The guy's belongings are scattered around. Off over here to the side is the guy's bow, and it's broken. It's broken, and the limbs are broken on it. The quiver is laying there with all of the arrows still in the quiver, so the guy never got a chance to get a shot off. They said there was a very easy to follow drag mark leading going out to the southeast. And so my friend, and the other ranger started following this drag. They followed it for 1.5 miles and came out on a little field out in the woods, a little clearing. And they started finding articles of clothing and stuff, and occasionally they would find something like a finger or something like that. They came out into a clearing, and there's the guy's mutilated and fed-on body laying there, and some of his clothes thrown up in a tree. And they determined that one was probably fed on by more than one. That guy was fed on by more than one of these things. It probably was hunting and killed the guy and took it to its family. And they ate what they wanted and left the rest. And there was a huge big deal. When he took me down there, you could still see the road was still torn all to pieces from all the traffic that had been in there. Now, my buddy told me that, like I said, my friend told me this. Later on, our buddy Mark, he starts telling us this. We're up there, and he starts telling us, And I was amazed that he knew anything about it. So I played dumb. I said, "You know where this happened?" He said, "Well, yeah, I can take you right there to it." I said, "Well, let's go." So we jumped in my truck and off we went. Mark took me to the exact place.
See, local people
The
talk
exact
about
place.
it.
Yeah.
Locals talk about it. The
So that was
government suppresses it.
right. Now, we have done a lot of research and finally found that guy's name. We've got his name, but we can't not release it. And supposedly he was killed, it was just listed as an animal attack was the cause of death.
Which most casualties of this are.
Yeah.
It's usually the bear.
Here's another picture of just artwork of a Type 4. There now here's one that was a photograph. This is a blown up detail of a much larger picture. And this thing was crossing, that's a fence right there. It's crossing a fence is what it's doing. Now, I personally do not think that that's a real Dogman. I think that's a hoax. And the reason being, you see the shoulders on this? This is a very accurate artist rendering of what we have seen other pictures of. This is very accurate rendering of what they look like. You see,
I don't want to see.
Now, we were camped in the north end. We decided we're going to go see if we can find one of these and get a picture of it.
No, you did. I wanted to find a Bigfoot in the north end.
Well, we had never been up there. So we go up there and we camp in the north end. First thing weird that happened, we had wolves show up.
Yep.
Red wolves showed up, tried to lure my dog out of camp. Tried to lure my German Shepherd up there to them. And if any of y'all have read Call of the Wild, they use the exact same tactics as what he described in Call of the Wild. It was absolutely amazing. All right, that happened 2 nights in a row. Then we had a quiet night. And then the next night,
a lot of people left.
Yeah, a lot of people left. It was you and me and
Dan and Vicky.
And Vicky and there was that guy that moved up there with us.
Maureen and Leonard.
Maureen. Yeah, Maureen Leonard.
We had about 20 people there at this outing, and everybody left, but there was only 6 left with 3 tents.
Leonard had insomnia, and he would sit out by the fire most of the night smoking cigarettes, and he had a Canon quick shot camera, film camera, and anytime something moved or he heard the slightest little rustle or something, he'd pull that camera up and he'd shoot 2 or 3 pictures.
Yep.
He'd burn 4 or 5 rolls of film every time we went out, just shooting pictures towards stuff that he would hear out there in the dark at night. All right, he heard something coming down the hill right behind Bear's tent. And he sat there, and he's no further than here to the corner right there. Maybe actually no further here to that bright light right there.
Right.
And he's sitting there and he hears steps and he looks and like Bear's tent's right there. My tent's like right here. And there's a big oak tree right beside my tent. And I have my German Shepherd buddy in the tent with me. All right. Leonard hears footsteps going up there. He fired his camera once and he absolutely could not believe what he saw. And what he saw was, what he saw was this right here, except he saw the right side of it. And he quickly shot another one. And